Hello and welcome to season 2 of Sunday Sweet Chats. My name is Charles K. Carter and I'm a queer poet who currently lives in Oregon. My latest chapbook, Artificial Sweetness, is coming very soon from Finishing Line Press. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about our sweet guest today and discuss some sweet, sweet poetry. Hello, Donny. I'm so glad that you're here. Can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on your show. My name is DonnyWinter. I am an LGBTQ plus slash nature slash cyberpunk poet living in the good old Midwest, Michigan. And I also teach. I do so many different things, but I am very excited to be here to have this conversation with you because I've really enjoyed your show thus far.
Thank you. Before we get too far into the poetry, since it's Sunday Sweet Chats, we have to know, what is a sweet treat that you enjoy?
Being that I am a child of the Midwest, and I believe that you are as well, if memory serves me correctly, ice cream is probably my go-to. My favorite flavors, number one would be Blue Moon ice cream. It's so delicious. It is the blue ice cream that's in Superman ice cream. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that, but it's very good. It turns your mouth blue. It's great. And I also am a huge fan of cookies and cream ice cream. I don't know about you, but just like ice cream, I could eat ice cream in the middle of the dead of winter and I would be perfectly fine.
Ice cream is definitely one of my favorites. And actually, my husband and I transitioned to a plant or vegan diet. I don't know. I don't like using the term plant-based because we're junk food vegans, like ice cream. Um,
Still vegan, that's valid.
but we made a cookies and cream ice cream cake, and I just like finished my half of it last night, and it was delicious. I
That
can
sounds
send you the rest. I mean, it's pretty easy, but
please do. So speaking of shameless consumption confessions, so the other day, uh my fiance is always trying to get me to go to the beach with him, and I'm not a beach person. However, my way of like compromising is like, okay, well, I'll go to the beach if we can stop and get ice cream afterward. So I bought a pint of, I think it's called Sturgeon River ice cream. It's like a Michigan ice cream of like waffle chunks and caramel pieces and stuff like that. I ate the whole pint in maybe a day or two. Yeah, it was great.
yeah, I have times where I can eat a pint in one sitting. It
Me
doesn't
too.
take much.
Me too. Me too. Between the only other sweet that I absolutely am obsessed with would be peach cobbler. I'm a cobbler person. I feel like cobbler is the most underrated dessert. So I love cobbler.
That sounds delicious as well. That sounds delicious to pair with some like vanilla ice cream on
Oh,
top of hot cobbler.
oh, it shouldn't exist without vanilla ice cream, honestly.
All right, let's move on from sweet food to sweet poetry. You have a poem to read for us. Go for it.
I do. So this poem is the title poem in my latest collection, Casting Seeds. This is actually, it's my third collection, but it's my first chapbook. So this is Casting Seeds, and I'll probably talk a little bit about it afterward as well. All these years later, I stand above the tree line, tall enough to see the spin of constellations whirling above this planet. There is memory beneath this bark in these roots, old enough to see, yet young enough to wonder splendor into existence. Seasons bear no threat. Storms cannot weather these leaves because I've survived being lifted from a sandbox and ran over by a lawnmower. All these years later, I'm casting seeds like she did. I sustain memory through the woods beneath my limbs as it does for me yet still. And we thrive together in this delicate biome, symbiotic strong. And that's it.
Thank you. That's a beautiful piece. I haven't read your most recent chapbook. I need to. I've got your first full length over my shoulder here.
Woo!
Yeah, I need to get caught up. I think one thing that really drew me to your work is your kind of connection of queer themes and nature themes, which I find very much in my work as well. Those are two like very strong threads in my work, and
Absolutely. I think that's why we've been like drawn to each other and to each other's work over the past couple of years because like those themes are very much apparent. And what I enjoy about our writing is that we do weave in like a lot of like beautiful imagery, but there is a certain like dark undertone to it as well, which I find to be very cathartic to weave into my own work. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it can be. I'm kind of realizing over the last like year how personal my poetry actually is. I think oftentimes I think I'm like, this is just a metaphor or an idea, or it's something that was inspired by something that's totally not related to me. So it's not me. Or sometimes I think it's a persona poem. Like, but then I look back at it, or the more I think about it or process it, it's like, nope, those are the things I'm going through. That's what I'm processing. And it's part of it. And I don't think I even realize it sometimes. And I think that's just my body, my mind coping with that and dealing with that.
Oh, I feel the exact same way. So what's interesting about this collection is it's pretty different from the first two. So my first collection, Carbon Footprint, is very much nature themed. My second collection, Feats of Alchemy, is very industrial, cyberpunk, both of which, like the first talks about like my experiences prior to coming out, growing up in rural Michigan, which as you can imagine was a delight. And then the second one focuses on more so discussing experiences post coming out. This, however, kind of delves into childhood a little bit more because I feel like a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community, if we're lucky like I am, have like a very strong figure in our lives, like a grandmother, for example, who kind of served as like our first representation of a person that we may aspire to be, right? So my grandmother for me was that person, and I wanted to dedicate this book for her or to her because she instilled in me this love of gardening, a love of nature. And during very difficult times when I was like a teenager, experiencing bullying, etc., like nature kind of became like that place that I would go to experience some form of solace. And while this book does bring in some of like those dark undertones that I was talking about, it also, I hope, feels like a catharsis of some sort, right? I hope that people can kind of gain a sense of that escape through reading it the way that I did when I was that age.
I love that. It sounds like there's some joy woven into that with some of those ideas and themes. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the title "Casting Seeds" came to me because I'm always interested in thinking about who or what we've gotten through to get to the people that we are now, right? And I don't know that we always celebrate or acknowledge that journey. I know that I hadn't until I started, my therapy journey, which I'm grateful that I did. But I like we've gone through so much, and I think we need to acknowledge those things that we went through in order to celebrate the people that we are now. That way we can cast seeds for, I mean, it probably sounds a little cheesy, but that way we can cast seeds for other people as a form of representation ourselves, if that makes sense. And that's, I would say personally, what that poem was largely about. Like my grandmother cast those seeds for me, and now because I've gotten to where I am now, I'm hoping to continue to do the same thing that she did, legacy wise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think, yeah, as a writer, I'm trying to think of that as well. Like what message am I bringing to the world, or what am I doing to, even by just telling my truth at times, even if that's dark or whatever, like what am I doing to maybe give permission for people to own their stories and own their truths and be honest, because I think very much in American society we tend to stuff things down or not talk about things like sexuality, death, like so many things are so taboo. Emotions, I think, are very taboo. We don't really talk about emotions as a society very
Absolutely.
much. But I really like that metaphor of casting seeds. And it
Thank
kind of
you.
reminded me, do you know who Jake Wesley Rogers is?
Oh, that name sounds very familiar to me.
I just learned about him. He's a young gay pop singer, and he's very like his videos and his style is very reminiscent of like Freddie Mercury of Queen and Elton John and
Ooh,
Bowie. So he's like very like glam rock era, like his
yeah.
style. He's very kind of cool and interesting, and he really does a lot with like religion and gayness and like how those things intersect, and I don't know, check him out. But I listened to something with him where he talked about like he's hoping, like he's dropping keys, like we all kind of have our own cages that we're learning to come out of. And I mean, part of like a lot of us through therapy or other work that we do to come out of those cages, and people drop those keys or cast those seeds for us, and he's trying to do that through his art as well. So
No, I'm
it's
gonna have
important
to
work.
I'm gonna have to check out his stuff. And the thing is, like, it's important work, but it's also very intimidating work too, because there's a certain point where we have to kind of find that that inner wealth of confidence that we never had, right? Because we spent so many years having people minimize us or erase us, and to this day, we still have people doing that to the LGBTQ plus community left and right. But once that's found, it's such a freeing experience. And I think for my first, like through my first collection, I was still kind of finding that, but by the time I got to my second collection and this one, I felt a little bit more confident in being like, okay, like I'm feeling concrete in my history and my experiences, and now I can actually write about these more vulnerable things and present them to the world. So
And vulnerability is bravery for sure. um,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Where can we find your newest chapbook, Casting Seeds?
Well, if you go to my website, you can find it through my website, DonnyWinter.com. All three of my books have been released through Alien Buddha Press. So if you go on Amazon and type in my name, you should be able to find them. And if you are not a huge fan of Amazon, which some people aren't, feel free to go to Leopard Print Books. You can find that if you just do a basic Google search, and you can purchase my books through them. They are an independently owned pop-up here in mid-Michigan. Phenomenal human beings. I love them very much.
Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, um, the new question this season is, what keeps you sweet in a world that is so salty?
Ooh. Well, other than consuming sweets, of course, I would say the thing that keeps me sweet would be finding time for myself by enjoying my outlets, like whether it be writing poetry, gardening. I feel like if anything, the pandemic has taught us all the importance of taking time to make time for the things that we love to do, right? Because we're all on this like assembly line of sorts, and we're expected to be on this assembly line, but sometimes we just have to remove ourselves from it in order to refresh ourselves. Lately, this year, gardening has been like a lifesaver for me. So I would say that would be mine.
And I know you just purchased a new home, so that's exciting, especially
Yes.
gardening in your new home.
I know, like getting a chance to like landscape everything has been my little gay heart is so content right now because of it. So
Thank you so much for being here, Donny, for talking about your book and what brings you joy in the world. And everyone, stay tuned because later on in the season, Donny is going to be back. Um,
oh, I'm
um,
excited.
Thank you again for being here. It's been a sweet treat to have you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Catch another episode of Sunday Sweet Chats next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.